Hello, I'm JoAnne with Women's Wellness, and today I have a special guest, Nurse Jackie. We're going to talk about stress and anxiety.
I'd like to identify the differences. When we talk about stress, we want to look at stress as being something short-term and that we're responding to it from an external mode, whereas anxiety is going to be something internal and how we perceive something. But stress can occur when you say to me, gee, I'm going to come and film you, Jackie, or I have a deadline my boss puts on me and says I need to get this done, or I have a disagreement with a friend or a disagreement with a colleague. And then once that is resolved, stress then disappears, it goes away. But in anxiety, that remains. And so with stress, what is wonderful to look at stress is that, like I say, that they both have different origins, but that we need to be cognizant of when stress is occurring. And so what happens is that people are living in such a stressful world nowadays. We all have different stresses, but women tend to be the caregivers, and the caregivers of children and of elderly adults, and so they have this other added role. And sometimes their plates get so heavy that these roles, sometimes they feel that they're not accomplishing all that they need to. And so they begin to feel, that they're failing.
Yeah, overwhelmed.
Yeah, overwhelmed and a sense of failure because the plate is too full. So what I'm saying, what we need to do with stress is that we need to be very cognizant of it, and we need to, when the evening comes, we need to rest and restore and relax. And what happening with a lot of young people is that they come home and they decide, they're going to have a gourmet meal, they're going to play games with the kids, they're going to read, they want everything that there is from life, but they're not listening to their bodies saying, okay, the sun is going down, my cortisol levels need to be calm, I need to relax, restore, and rest. But people are revving up. So I'm trying to look at how we can deal with that and be cognizant and listen to our bodies. Because if we don't, what's going to happen is we're going to kick into not being able to identify that we're stressed or if that's just the norm. When that happens, it becomes chronic. And then we can kick into anxiety. And once anxiety happens, we're looking at internal, not an external, but internal things that give us thoughts of fear and dread and apprehension. And that becomes when the person can no longer find ways to cope on a daily basis. And so that may be where a person goes and talks with their clinician and says, I'm just not feeling good, I'm experiencing this. And at that point in time, a lot of times a prescription will be provided for the patient.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is I'd really love to work with people to find out, once we're in that stress mode, what are some things that we can do so we don't end up that we're looking at a medication. But we have to remember when there is a need for an SSRI, that we have to allow at least 2 to 6 weeks for that to work for us.
Yes.
So that this is something that you and your clinician decide, and that then once you're on that medication, you just don't up and quit the medication. That is a decision that you make with your physician.
Absolutely.
But before we get to that, what I'm saying is that we need to begin to listen to the internal cues and use some supplementation to look at what we can do so that we don't get to that point. Before we get to that point and along that way, there are so many supplements that we can use at that time. One of the things that when we're looking at stress and anxiety is some of the supplementation that people who have deficiencies in vitamin A and vitamin D and the B vitamins, once you get those into a person chemically, they get relief.
Absolutely. So for the viewers that are watching, I know you had mentioned earlier, and I wanted to touch on this, that when the woman comes home, she's got to cook dinner, she's playing with the kids, got to make sure they do their homework, we got to pay those bills, and absolutely the stress of it and overwhelm because we don't take 5 minutes for ourselves. And I think so if there's any other advice that you could give to the viewers just before they come in and just to try these three little things. I say take those 10 minutes at nighttime, even if it's just washing your face and putting your creams on, because sometimes I'm so tired, I've just passed out without even taking my makeup off.
And that's where I'm saying we've got to listen to our body. We have to stop and listen. What are my needs? I can't meet everybody else's needs until I have met my own needs.
And as women, that is something that we always put last.
That's true. I think exercise is very imperative. Finding time to socially interact and connect with our friends, and taking that time. We're hauling kids to school and we're taking them to this and that, but we need to find that inner connection or that connection with a friend and make sure that we take time to do that. Go to a movie with a friend, and exercise. But I can't express enough how I feel, and I have real biases about how very imperative it is that we're eating proper food.
So stress and anxiety. In closing, is there anything you'd like to share?
I just, when we get to that anxiety, I think it's like we have to deal with it, and we have to deal with it immediately. And I would rather have people get to the area of stress and say, okay, what's going on in my body that is causing me to feel what I'm feeling, and listen to it before we get to that place where we're experiencing high anxiety. So when we have stress, what do we need to do? We need to go for a walk. We need to make sure that we're eating right. We need to make sure that we're not drinking, heavy duty cola drinks. We need to take action and to make some changes instead of just letting it continue and spiral out into anxiety. Because then we're talking about things like anxiety disorder and panic attacks. And so we want to do all the work that we can prior to.
Thank you so much for coming
welcome.
on Women's Wellness. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.
And it was lovely having you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. This is JoAnne again with Women's Wellness.